Peter Courtney and Oregon Business and Industry First Vice President Karen Vineyard.
Stop playing that foolish music. Hi, how you doing, boss? Yes.
Senator Peter Michael Coleman Courtney,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here with us today.
Insincere.
You've been serving as president of the Oregon State Senate since 2003. You have 35 years of experience serving in the Oregon legislature, holding seats in both the House and Senate representing Marion and Polk counties. Given your extensive experience as a presiding officer and as a member of the legislature in both the majority and the minority, I believe you are aptly positioned to discuss the big challenges facing Oregon. Now, recently, Oregon Business and Industry conducted a statewide poll, and one of our findings was that Oregonians from different regions across the state hold distinctly different views about the direction our state leaders, like you, should take on key issues facing Oregon. So my first question for you is, what are your thoughts about how we can bridge this gap and bring urban and rural Oregonians together?
Well, first of all, I called you, right? You didn't call me. I called you.
We called each other.
No, I called you first. So I do think you should know in the back here we have Louis, Quincy, and Chad.
That's right.
Who really want to come up here. They're extremely attractive human beings, and they would like to, we wouldn't be here if they weren't in the back working very hard. So all of us people who come up here and sit and act important, they're doing a lot of work back there, and you gotta, you know, it's very important. I do. So I'm not going to embarrass them or tell them that. Also, Karen Winger, Vineyard, went to Claremont McKenna College. Now, just a minute. They're the Stags and the Athenas. I have no idea what that is. It's a very exclusive college down in Claremont. It's one of the 5 schools. Their acceptance rate last year was 9.3%. Harvard's was 4.6, but Stanford's was 4.4. So while you may think you went to a pretty good school, you flunked and didn't make it because Stanford's acceptance rate is lower than your acceptance rate. And I'm happy about that because Harvard, you know, I get Harvard, but the highest public university is Cal Berkeley at 21.5%. So I just thought you should know that. She lives in rural Clackamas County with a cat, or cats, right?
That's right.
And you have quite a few acreage out there.
And I really live in rural Clackamas County,
right.
But I work in urban downtown Portland.
Right. So the issue of the rural versus urban, you should not ask that to elected officials because they cannot solve the issue. They will never be able to solve that. And I'm sure there's some elected officials in the audience who are really going to be looking for me after this. First of all, if you look at the legislature, when I was elected in '81, in my Democratic caucus, we had Democrats from Pendleton, Ontario, Baker City, Klamath Falls. Those days are all gone. The Republicans had members of their caucus that were out of Clackamas County suburbs as well as the Eugene area. Those days are all gone. Predominantly, the Democrats are strictly from urban or suburban areas. There are 1 or 2 exceptions. And the Republicans are strictly from rural areas. Your statewide offices are all Portland. So I'm going to tell you now, it would take a very rare man or woman who has that background to go into any negotiation session with a person who is opposite of them saying, I'm going to change what's important to me. That's not human nature. So this elected official is telling you how they're going to solve that. And we've had elected officials go and visit with elected officials from other parts of the state, stay overnight in their houses, do field trips. But the fact still remains, elected officials cannot deal with the rural versus urban. I'll tell you who could deal, and you keep overlooking it. You need the city managers in the local communities and the agency heads in state government, corrections, state police, human resources, parks, ag. Those are the individuals, through what they do there, could really do a lot to create awareness that there is a true concern for rural Oregon if you're from urban and vice versa. The head of the state police, for example, is from Bend, and he reflects that. I have a great relationship with him. But predominantly, until you're never going to get elected officials, I don't care what they say up here, to deal with this. That is where we're struggling. But you could do it through public administration and public administrators. I think one of the highest callings is to be a city manager. So I think we should look there much more than we do, and we don't. But I think that is the way that perhaps you could help with this divide. It's interesting. The one area we don't have a divide, you know what it is? What do you think it is? Somebody. There's enough of you out there. Well, all right, it's the budget. It's the budget. If you look at the budget we pass in the legislature, including capital construction, where we allow people to sell bonds to build different projects, there is no discrimination at all. And maybe that's because we always take the budget process and we make them go out and do public meetings all over the state. We did that in transportation. We did that in the Student First. Some of those public hearings took so that those parts of the state felt like they were really being included. But the budget that we passed, I'm going to say this, I'm going to brag on it because I'm a Democrat and we're in control, it really goes out of its way to reach to all parts of Oregon, as well as when we fund projects, little theaters, community centers. I could go on and on. So the budget is the remarkable document that is not put together by rural versus urban divide. We actually do that together.
That's a good start.
It's a beautiful start.
Thank you.
Audience is not very active.
In 2019, you led the effort to reform pre-K through 12
What? I'm just looking.
education in our state.
What?
So you led the reform for pre-K through 12 education in our state, working to improve the outcomes for Oregon's children. So I'd like to talk about what happens after high school graduation in our post-secondary education system. What are your thoughts about how we can improve higher education in Oregon?
Well, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble on this one. Higher ed and I do not get along. And, can I say this without bragging?
You can.
Okay, I have a bachelor's and master's and a law degree, so I spent almost 10 years in college. But higher ed is incapable of remodeling itself and will never remodel itself, just like healthcare never will, because it starts with doctors and insurance providers and things. Higher ed starts with president of universities and board of directors and faculty, et cetera. It never starts or ends with a student. Higher ed continues to build residence halls, continues to use the old model. Now, I mentioned Harvard and Stanford and Claremont McKenna. Those schools will always exist. They should exist. But the truth of the matter in public education, and California once had the greatest system of all, and they lost it when they started to do things with taxes. There was a bill introduced last session that said you could get a bachelor's degree through community colleges in this state. You have 17 community colleges in this state. Higher ed was not happy with that bill, and we passed it. And by the way, many other leading states have this bill too. In a very specialized area, you could get a bachelor's degree from going to a community college. But there's another bill that's been in 2-year sessions, and they've blocked it. It would allow one of your smaller universities, that's your Eastern Oregon universities, the Southern Oregon University, OIT, and Western Oregon University, a school I'm very, to merge with the community college near to them and create this incredible model where you had one president, one provost, but literally a student could enter in the community college level and know they don't have to get into all these transfer credits. It'd be a very dynamic concept, because I think I had surgery in the last year or two at Oregon Health Science University. The individual who operated on me started his career in community colleges. And so we don't ever think of that. People don't always know what they want or need. And that would be a very dynamic concept. It really does a lot with expenses. But only one of the universities is willing to start to look at that, a merger. I'm just giving you an example where the models that we use in higher education don't work anymore, in my humble opinion. Now, if you have the parents and the resources and you want to go to an exclusive private school, et cetera, then please go. But I even say that many of those small liberal arts schools you exist that are private, they're not going to make it either. But this student debt thing, we play games with it. And I'm just saying this new model, particularly in my district, and I'm Salem, major parts of Salem, Jervis, and Woodburn, it would really help a lot. For example, there's a person who works in my office. Her husband got a bachelor's degree from a major university in the state of Washington. You know what he's doing now? He's had to kill himself to get into the apprenticeship to be an electrician. Now stop and think about that. We don't make those connections, but we sure need electricians. At least I sure do. You don't want me messing with electricity or plumbing or carpentry. But I have to say, had I had a chance with this model when I was much younger, I would have loved to develop carpentry skills with my hands because I was raised near a boatyard and we worked with boats at that time, which were wood, not fiberglass, and I admired ship carpenters. So I just think higher ed, they continue this, well, we're going to build this building, we're going to build this building, we're going to require them, you have to live on campus, all this stuff. It's antiquated, it's dated, and yet you're never going to get them to go along with it. So I'm very discouraged by that, and I really have little hope that higher ed will ever come up with a model that truly thinks of the student first and last. How much time is left? I know she's the timekeeper. Is that what's going on?
5 minutes.
You know, huh?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Let me see. Go ahead. Go ahead, I just checked. Well, wait a minute. We're already out of time because of the people who talked so much before us.
Well, let's ask.
No, we're out of time. We got to go.
Let's ask you one more
the
question.
governor was up here all day. Speaker was here, but we're done. They used our time.
I think it's important
I
that
got
we.
1:23 on my clock. We got to go.
Well, Senator Courtney.
Yes, please.
Let's ask at least one more question for you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about economic development and job growth. As you know, Oregon is famous for our sports industries. How do you see athletics and the sports industry playing a continued role in economic development and job growth in the years ahead?
Well, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm big on sports. I think it's, you can't even begin to realize the magnitude of what we're going to do with athletics in this country or in this state. It is a huge economic driver. And once again, the student athlete comes last, because I am going to do SAPIL. And what I wanted to do years ago on pay equity, that is students being able to, well, we leave that alone because I'm going to get in trouble on that. But the fact is that you see it coming. You got your Timbers here. You got your Trailblazers. They're going to go for the World Championships in Eugene, which is beyond belief what's coming. They have no idea the magnitude of that event. And while I didn't like it, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we do it right. The cost to the public in athletics is huge. And rather than wait till the demands come to you from the private sector, some wealthy man who wants to own a team, you need to have somewhere a coordinating group of people who realizes the incredible economic engine that's going on here. The stadium at Eugene and at Oregon Valley, they've got to get much bigger if they're going to continue to chase this national championship in football. But your roads, if you schedule games at a certain time, you'll shut down our highway system. I'm giving you an example. But we're going to go there. We have to go there because the popularity of sports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But your whole scheduling of games is done by one school or one conference. It ignores the state it's in. It ignores the traffic structure it in. So I think we're going to be either it's going to overwhelm us or we're going to get ahead of it. I don't know what's going to happen with baseball up here. I'm not going to get into that. I actually think hockey, National Hockey League team, makes more sense for Portland next. But I'm just saying you haven't begun to see what's going to happen in athletics. I think you should pursue it, and it should be more than just the Portland area. But it is a huge economic driver, both in terms of the students, but also coaches who make more money. Your highest paid public employees in Oregon are far and away coaches. No president of Oregon Health Science University, no governor, they don't even get close to them. And that itself is a statement about where our priorities are. Just stop and think. I'm talking about assistant coaches as well as head coaches. So this thing is huge. It's out of control. I think there should be some private sector, public sector getting together to say we need to look at all of the athletics, where it's going and where it's not going. The attempt for the World Championship, which is the Olympics in a way every 2 years, is to make this state the center of all track all over the world. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but that's just an example where Oregon is going with athletics from an economic standpoint, and she really should get ahead of this and start to study it from a statewide perspective, both in terms of roads, security, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, Senator, we're almost out of time.
Well, wait a minute. Let me see. Go ahead. We're really out of time. Go ahead.
One last quick question for you. Are there any issues you're thinking about that you want to share with our audience here today?
What?
Are there any other issues that you'd like to share?
Oh, there's a ton of them. There's all kinds of them. But I really would only suggest that this is an extraordinary group of people. I really think there should be more director of agency heads brought into a retreat in this state for statewide. The agency heads are more important than even governors in this state. And I really think they could learn from your business models, but you could learn from them that it's not easy to do corrections, human resource and things. So I just wish there was some summit where human beings from the business community like yourselves and all the director of agency heads in the state of Oregon, you could throw some city managers in there, would meet and work as hard as you work today, because I think that would really benefit our state in ways that no other state is doing that. But your public administrators are key to how good you are. I know it says stop, but it's not my fault that they talking all day up here. So I really would make that one last suggestion to you. If you want to take an agenda, you do that and you'll surprise the world. Nobody else looks at, they see you have your retreat. Some of these agency heads go off and do a little retreat for their staff. But if you ever put them together, I think you could learn a remarkable amount from each other, and you would really help us deal with the divide as well as economics and so many other areas. And plus, you'd be the envy of the country. Thank you.
Senator Courtney, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I have a gift for you. I have this gift. You're not to open it here. This is a gift I gave to my interviewer for putting up with me.
Thank you.
No other interviewer did that. I did it. Do you have a gift for me?
I do in the back.
Oh, in the back, okay.
Okay.
Well, there
Thank
it is.
you.
No, there you are.